So if we look at the relationship between these three challenges, it's easy to see that they're not three separate challenges, that they're interrelated somehow or another. If we look at getting audits under control, it would be hard to do that without having clear expectations. Another way to look at that is to say that if we don't have clear expectations, then we're setting up auditors to fail. And the same thing would be true between clear expectations and being ready every day. It's hard to be ready every day if the expectations are not clear. If it's always a moving target, then we don't know what to do. We cannot be ready every day. We're setting the plants up to failure in the exact same way. So those three problems are interrelated, but it gets a bit more tangled than that because we haven't yet looked at the relationship between audits being under control and being ready every day. If you try to raise the bar, or if you try to move to the next level, or however you want to call that, you'll have to do things differently. We're not going to go from here to here by doing exactly the same thing as we've always done. So if we do things differently, one of those things is you'll have to focus on the difference, what makes the product safe, rather than what the auditor wants to hear or what the auditor wants to see. So you'll have to focus on food safety rather than focusing on certification. And sometimes there's overlap, but there's not always overlap. The difference between what is important for food safety and what the auditor wants, if it's something the auditor wants, but it doesn't make the product safe, is red tape. So you'll have to cut red tape. It's just what it is. What happens is once you start cutting red tape, once we start not doing what the auditors want, then in a system where auditors are all powerful, then you get penalized for not doing what the auditor wants. And that's part of the problem right now, or with the situation that reinforces the system the way it is that as soon as anybody veers out from the norm, if you want to call it that way, they are liable to be dinged by some auditors. Not every auditor, but some auditor might come over and give them non-conformances for not following the established way of doing things. And that reinforces the system as it is. The only way that you can focus on being ready every day is if you have an auditor that understands what is required to make products safe rather than what they are used to seeing in other plants of your category, for example. So the point is, in terms of resolving those three challenges, we'll have to resolve all three at the same time. It will be very difficult to resolve one without resolving the other two. And then finally, when we look at those three challenges, they happen at different scales. So going from here to here, you can do that one plant at a time, one bakery, one canning plant, one dairy at a time. We don't need the whole world to follow suit to be able to go from here to here. Understanding what food safety means for a category or for an industry like dairies or millers, then of course that cannot be done one plant at a time. We could do it with one plant, but the power of that tool comes from having some sort of consensus or some buy-in from the industry at large. If we want to say this is what safe means for dairies, we need to have a number of dairies engaged. And then finally, when we think of the auditor, the challenge with auditors, well, it's not a challenge that focuses on one plant or one product category. It's a challenge that focuses on all the food industry at once. So those three challenges happen at different levels, and each one needs to be resolved at the level at which it happens. So going from here to here is going to happen one plant at a time, bridging the gap between what is safe for an industry and the certification industry, if you want. That's going to happen one food industry at a time, the dairies, the bakeries, etc. And finally, getting audits under control, that's going to happen within the whole industry. That's what I mean by each challenge being resolved at its own level.